Okay, good morning, and thank you for this invitation to explain you what we are working here in Catalonia. I am Pau Sainz, and my colleague also Sergi Herrando. We are going to try to explain all these issues. Okay. So we can start. Okay. You can pass next, Sergi. Thank you. Oh. Are you seeing correctly the?
We see a map.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let's go. First of all, a little bit of context about our territory, our region. Catalonia, it's at an administrative level, it's one of the 17 autonomous communities in Spain. The competence in nature conservation in Spain are largely assigned to these autonomous communities. So we are in the mostly parts of the competence. We are the administration that have to implement, but it's true that we have to have the correct coordination with the central administration of the state. Some more context about the environment in Catalonia, maybe you know a little bit. Catalonia has about 32,000 square kilometers and a population of nearly 8 million people. It's a quite very biodiverse country, as you see in the pictures. We have high mountains in the Pyrenees, especially, but also other many medium mountains, a very long coastline, near 500 kilometers long. And by example, another important point is that we have one of the main Mediterranean deltas, the Ebro Delta, and in the inland, in the interior plains, we have quite very arid sectors. So this picture is a quite diverse country, landscapes, and the result is that we have, by example, nearly 100 habitats of community interest, or nearly 150 species from the Annex 2 from the Habitats Directive. So sometimes we speak about Catalonia. It's one of the hotspots in biodiversity of the south of Europe. Despite of this, it's true that in our territory there are quite a lot of human pressures, like you see in the pictures at the right side. Large cities, quite, by example, the most important city is Barcelona, but there are other ones. Also, we have a diffuse urbanization, etc., transports, infrastructure, a very intense tourist pressure in some areas, especially in the coast, but not only the coast sometimes. And obviously, as in other parts of our planet and Europe, the pressure of the climate change and biological invasions. So all these things that are happening all around Europe. But it's true that like in other regions of the Mediterranean, in the last 75 years, maybe, we have also a very strong process of land use change, the abandonment of the agriculture, the livestock, the mountains especially, the intensification of the agricultural works in the plains. So that means the expansion of the young forest in a lot of these medium mountains, more pressure in the water courses due to the increment of the populations, etc., etc. Later, Sergi will give you some data about the result of these pressures and changes has in our biodiversity. We have recorded quite a significant loss of biodiversity, and well, we will see later. And well, in order to respond to this process, it's necessary to have a powerful monitoring system. And this is what we have been trying to organize in recent years in Catalonia. Next slide, please. Well, yes, in this slide, you can see the trend in number of monitoring projects in our country. As you see, obviously, this has been changing, especially in the with the change of the century. Well, thanks also to, especially to the push of the society and the pushing and the interest of the administration, both things. Well, next slide, please. Now we are going to explain very quickly some examples of projects that have started in that years, the year 2000. One example of a very success project is related with the atlas of birds, and you can see, and this is show us the importance of these projects that are repeated along the years with diverse versions. These allow us to have the trends of, by example, 2 species. One of them, the booted eagle, that is increasing its distribution and population a little bit. So thank you to these projects. You can see it. And in the other side, the southern grey shrike, Lanius meridionalis, that it's losing territory and losing populations. Next slide. Another good example of this, also the projects that are repeated along the years from in this case, yeah, more or less in the year 2000. It's the habitat mapping, terrestrial mapping in this case, the first version in 2003, and so on. You can see here, and the existence of these projects repeated along the years allows us to a lot of things, to inform the European community, facilitate the elaboration of reports at all the levels, but also to see the changes in the distribution of habitats, etc., and be also the basis to modelization for species, a lot of things. This is now one of our most successful projects that we have to continue in the next years to prepare the next version, etc. And all of that, trying to keep the comparison, the capability to compare the different versions, that sometimes it's not, this is not easy. Next slide, please. Another, this is the example of mapping habitat, but in the sea, that we have been working in the last years for, in this case, the first version. Also important to obviously in the sea, the lack of information, it's always, at least here in the Mediterranean, more important than in the land. We have reached this cartography that starts in the north and of our coast and achieves the deep of 50 meters, a total of 189 hectares. So it's a product that's well, in the next years also, like the other examples, we will have to update and prepare new versions. Next slide. Okay. All these products, all these works in monitoring are possible in not only by the initiative of the administration. The administration by itself couldn't be enough to push these projects. So we have in 2023 we created this network that we call the Observatory of Natural Heritage and Biodiversity in Catalonia, to have more collaboration between the administration that has the competence in natural conservation with the research centers, universities, museums, and NGOs that works with information about nature. So that is important because all the projects that later will explain Sergi in a little bit more detail are developed with the support of the administration, or also local administrations, but also by the inspiration of an initiative of other institutions like these ones that we are all together in this observatory. And next slide. Okay, Sergi, I think that is for you.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm to avoid noise, so I am going to share again.
Okay.
And you see the slides?
Yes.
Thank you. So just to continue with the talk that my colleague Pau started, I will present some of the examples of the things we are doing with the monitoring data and how we are going to work to try to improve the situation of monitoring in Catalonia. So this is an example of a clear example of the usage of the information coming from monitoring. In this case, for the Article 17 reporting, the last edition, 2019-2024. This is the conservation status of species in this directive in Catalonia. As you can see, there is quite quite a lot of information on the situation of these species, basically thanks to the efforts conducted in monitoring. Most of the species included have information, are not unknown in most of the cases, although, as you can see, non-vascular plants, mollusks, arthropods, or other invertebrates are poorly known. And this is one of the things that we are going to try to improve. This is another example. Pau presented the efforts done in habitat monitoring in Catalonia. Here you can see which is the situation in the last reporting of the Article 17 regarding the main, let's say, main habitat aggregations. And you can see more or less which is the situation, which essentially shows you a picture of a good situation for some terrestrial habitats, such as the Mediterranean shrublands, and a poor situation in some others, such as the more coastal habitats or grasslands, for instance. Also, we can, thanks to the work done in cartography, in mapping the habitat distribution, we can also put all this information in maps. This is not only about the official reporting, we are also working to try to understand as much as possible which is the situation, and trying to do that in comparison with, let's say, international indicators, such as the Living Planet Index. Probably some of you or many of you know about this index, which is used at the let's say high level, international level. It's coordinated in London nowadays. The Living Planet Index shows an average decrease of 39% of the populations of vertebrate species in the world. And we are using all the information, in this case, not only for the species included in the directives, but also for all the species for which we have available information. You can see these examples on your left side with Catalan names, sorry, and on your right bottom place you can see which is the situation in Catalonia according to the same index, showing that the decline is also present, but for the same time period it seems that we are not in such bad situation as at the global level. This index is important also in terms of communication. It's like a kind of summary of the situation, which is very, very powerful communication tool. So we are also doing research around this index to try to be sure on what we are indicating. For instance, in this graph on your left, you are seeing which is the sensitivity of the index, taking into account which kind of species we are including. So, for instance, which would be the index in let's say here shown in green or in blue, which would be the index if we remove the more rare or the more widespread species, so that we can be certain that we have a decrease in this sense. Or we can also explore the possibilities of this kind of indices for understanding if trends in protected and non-protected areas are different or not. This is something that is an ongoing work. There are some lessons learned in general regarding monitoring in Catalonia. One of them is that the expertise and collaboration should be promoted at all levels, from administration, researchers, and society in general. Another lesson is that communities are essential for large-scale and long-term monitoring. So it is really, really important to have communities based on particular institutions working on a particular taxa with a lot of knowledge shared among them, and without these communities, at least from our perspective, the spatial and temporal scale needed for monitoring is really difficult to achieve. And another important lesson learned is the importance of the European networks, which are essential for knowledge. So becoming part as Catalan, let's say, organizations of the European organizations dealing with, for instance, weather monitoring in your left or butterfly monitoring in your right, you can see, you can learn a lot, you can contribute a lot to the European knowledge, and we think that this is essential and should be promoted as much as possible. Where we are, this is more or less from here onwards the aim of the HARMON project, the harmonization project. Here is in your left kind of explanation in terms of a graphic explanation on the coverage, or the taxonomic coverage of monitoring projects. You can see that which are the taxa, the groups that have more monitoring projects in terms of number of projects. So this is just one way of approaching the issue, number of projects. And the most important point to remark here is that 90% of projects we have in Catalonia are about the species population. So taking into account the GeoBond idea on the essential biodiversity variables, which are, let's say, classified in these six types of variables, most of the information is about the second main group of essential biodiversity variables, which is species population. And we have little information on genetic composition, species traits, community composition, ecosystem function, and ecosystem structure. For instance, the two aspects in the end, the ecosystem function and ecosystem structure, are really missing, are really gaps of information, for instance, for the EU reporting of the Habitat Directive. Sorry. And we are also exploring also what's the situation in our area. We see that 3/4 of the monitoring projects that are being conducted in Catalonia are carried out in a particular protected area, or in a particular area at least. And usually they are monospecific, so they are covering just one species, such as the example we are showing here for this particularly protected area in the Pyrenees, in which the monitoring of these butterfly species is done in a particular valley. While 1/4, so 25% of projects have, let's say, a broader perspective at the Catalan level, and are usually covering many species. This would be the example of the Catalan Butterfly Monitoring Scheme, which is the Catalan equivalent of the, let's say, European partnership of butterfly monitoring schemes, such as the one conducted in Germany. And so there is this kind of clear gradient from local and monospecific to, let's say, widespread and multi-specific. This is something interesting for us to understand and explore. So in this context, we are doing specific tasks in the harmonization of the monitoring of populations in protected areas. So one of the things we are doing here is to see for species included in directives in the Spanish and the Catalan catalogs of protected species. We are trying to see how well the existing monitoring projects are covering the information at the spatial level, which is the coverage and which are the gaps of monitoring in protected areas. Essentially, we are focusing the effort in these protected areas that has more capacity in terms of developing projects, which are the ones that are painted in green in this map on your right. Here's a couple of examples of how we are trying to explore this situation. On one hand, we have information on the species distribution, which is shown here in squares painted in violet color, and on the other side we have the distribution of the monitoring shown either in green, which means that the species is monitorized in this particular protected area, or in red, which means that the species is not monitorized in this particular protected area you see in the map. Here are a couple of examples of amphibians. One of the most widespread amphibian in Catalonia, it's Pelophylax perezi. Actually it's almost endemic Iberian species, but really common in the country. And then it's really endemic from endemic species from a massive, particular massive in Catalonia, which is this Calotryton arnoldi, only present in this area and well monitored in that particular multi-massive. So this is information that we can use to provide advice on which are the areas in which the monitoring is not properly developed, and in which the situation is good and should be maintained. Here's a kind of information or two examples. Sorry that everything is in Catalan here, but you can see that for these two species, for a fish and a grasshopper, we are trying to select which is the situation, which is the best of the available monitoring systems that should be promoted in each case. So in your left, you can see this fish, this endemic fish, Condostroma arcasi, in which there is a particular monitoring project in a natural park, which seems to be appropriate to be implemented in other areas, while we don't have a kind of global system to approach these species. On the other side, we have this grasshopper, in which there is essentially no system covering the species in the country, but there is a new initiative that could cover the species and other species of grasshoppers, and this is the advice we are going to provide to protected areas. Just in this line of thinking, we are doing this for all taxa, and here I'm going to show only a couple of examples of the kind of advices we are providing to our network of partners, including the institutions doing monitoring, and especially the administrative bodies managing the natural protected areas. So here we are doing this kind of advice together with all researchers and people involved in this kind of monitoring. So for Orthoptera, for grasshoppers and related species, we have 27 species included in this kind of set of species included in directives, in European directives, included in other legal texts that to some degree are making us compulsory to monitor the state of this species. And the summary for this group, for Orthoptera, is this clearly a potential of monitoring that is not well developed. So it's not well developed, and we should try to do a lot of work. Essentially, for each group of taxa, we are trying to evaluate species by species. If there is no evaluation, if the monitoring is not prioritized, maybe because it's too rare, and monitoring should be put after we know better if the species is present and where it's present in Catalonia. Sometimes we don't have a proposal yet. Sometimes the proposal is under discussion. We don't know yet which is the monitoring system, but we are discussing with experts when there is a new scheme that should be promoted, when there is a local scheme that could be applied in other areas, and when there is existing scheme that seems to be sufficient to understand which is the population trends for a given species. And here is a kind of examples on your left for some species, indicating that maybe in some cases the monitoring doing from the administration cover well 3 endemic Praenotropies species, or how the monitoring of Brachiocriptus trichacerotheus is done in a particular protected area and could be implemented in some other areas of the distribution of these species. And when a new scheme covering many species could be good to cover many orthopteran species included in this list of 27 species. So this is just an example. Another one from mammals would be this figure, this graph, showing a very varied, very diverse situation. It's a very diverse group in terms of monitoring. There are 69 species, quite a lot to cover. For bats, we have three different systems covering quite well many species, but not all. So we still need to implement a new monitoring system, which is called Kiro swarming from one particular group of species that is not covered by the others. For some small mammals, we have a good system that is covering them already in place. But for some subaquatic species, small mammals, we need to implement a new protocol that is not existing so far. For large and medium-sized mammals, several multi-species approaches with camera traps, for instance, have been already developed, while bears, wolves, and other species have specific schemes, and we don't have clear approaches for other species such as North African hedgehog. So the situation is really diverse, especially also accounting for marine mammals, which are really poorly known, and methods are essentially under discussion, excepting for the bottle-nosed dolphin, which is monitored in part of Catalonia in the north and could be extended to some other areas. Sorry, these are just examples of how we are trying to work in this line. And then once we have all this work done at the taxonomic level, we try to match which is the situation in each natural area, in each protected area. So here is just one example from one protected area in the Pyrenees, and here we show in this slide just for a few taxa what is done in dark green, and it's okay. It's in the we consider that this is the correct project to monitor the species in that area to achieve the let's say the aim of understanding which is the population trend. So this is full of names in Catalan and acronyms. Sorry for that, but this I think it's enough to show the idea. And in purple, for instance, you can see all the new proposals. So projects that are not implemented so far, but could be implemented relatively easily, apparently. And here's another example from Montserrat mountain. Maybe some of you know these typical mountains close to Barcelona. And here there is also showing this soft green, in which there are some monitoring projects that are implemented in other areas that could be also implemented here in Montserrat, and it seems to be a good place to implement these new projects. Sorry, not new projects, but projects that are not implemented specifically in this protected area. Also, we have this kind of projects which have no color. You can see here some of them that we consider that are projects that are currently done at the local level in these protected areas, and probably they are good enough at the local level, but maybe they are not so important at the overall level, or could be also the case that we should try to find the best way to integrate the information into more, let's say, global systems that take into account the information for that species, for this species. So we have a lot of possibilities, a lot of projects, a lot of areas to implement, and probably we have to prioritize. So it's really complex. There are many constraints in terms of people, in terms of funding, in terms of institutions, and we have to prioritize. So we started to work in some criteria for that. So criteria for prioritizing what to start next. And these are just a few ideas we are working with. One of the things to prioritize are ongoing monitoring schemes. Definitely, these that are already working should be prioritized and should be maintained or should be promoted in new places. It's also important to take into account the duration of the available temporal series. So if the temporal series is longer, for sure, this will be very informative in the future. We think that we should include, we should promote monitoring schemes, including as many species as possible, just by an issue of effectiveness, cost effectiveness. So it's really, really important, and our experience is that this is one of the ways to go. The other point, obviously, is the good geographical, ecological habitat coverage of the monitoring scheme. Obviously, the method, which should be robust, preferably within European standards, although sometimes should be adapted to the Mediterranean context. In some cases, the Mediterranean context for a given taxa is slightly different, and we should make some adaptations. We should also prioritize operational data flows. So it's really nice to have a monitoring scheme which is perfect, but the data flow for a given reason is not very operational. And we should also try to take into account which is the capacity of coordination and analytical at the level of the teams that are working with the data. In this sense, and just I'm going to finish soon, we are putting all the monitoring schemes that have been selected in the previous steps, and we are trying to add a kind of you can see on your left a kind of traffic light. So it's a kind of traffic light for us for all these criteria, or for some of these criteria for which we have information. If the monitoring is active, if the temporal series is long or not, if they are covering just one or many species, if it's located in just one single area or covering many, for instance, protected areas, if the methodology is clear and follows a good standard, etc. and etc. So this is more or less the way we are working with. Just a few more examples with bees, for instance, with Hymenoptera, also with Lepidoptera and Orthoptera. You can see, for instance, the example in the middle of the screen, the Catalan butterfly monitoring scheme, which I mentioned before, which started in 1994, which is covering more than 150 species located in 41 protected areas, and everything is green in that sense. So this is a good example of the monitoring system working really well. And that's all. Thanks a lot for your attention. We've been working with many protected areas. We've been working with many institutions, and I hope this kind of combined effort will help to maintain and develop monitoring schemes in Catalonia, and then also to contribute to all the legal aspects and all the scientific interests that are around monitoring in general in Catalonia and in Europe. Thank you.